I am thrilled to introduce our SIG 3 speaker and my colleague, Dr. Scott Sibley. He is in our Human Development and Family Sciences program here at NIU, and I'm really excited because he's helping us to really broaden our conception of literacy and what does literacy mean. And so his research really focuses in romantic relationship literacy and how can we be literate in our romantic relationships.
It is wonderful to be with all of you today. I appreciate this opportunity to present. I remember when Dr. Walter had invited me to this, I was like, literacy, that's a good way to put what I actually do with my students and my clients, is because I'm helping them to try to understand what it means to be in a relationship and to succeed in a relationship. And a lot of the information that a lot of emerging adults, 18 to 29-year-olds, are receiving is very inaccurate information. And TikTok, Instagram, you name it, there's just lots and lots of information out there about how to succeed in relationships. But we know what research tells us, and that's kind of what I'd like to talk to you about today, and then I'll briefly mention a study that I just had published last year. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I meet with clients all the time that are making decisions about romantic relationships, family relationships. They're struggling with their mental health. I meet with students all the time that have questions about lots of these things. Today, my presentation is entitled Exploring Commitment and Recent Trends in Romantic Relationship Literacy. Now, one of the things I like to do when I'm teaching about relationships is I like to just teach principles. Because I think in many ways you should just determine who you're going to love and what your relationship's going to look like. And we all have different relationships with family members, friends, etc. But one of the things I know for sure is that we face decisions. In our lives, we face decisions. And sometimes the decisions that we make, if we're not careful, can really lead us to a destination we never intended and never wanted to go down. If you've ever been on a ship before, a boat, or if you've been on an airplane, you know this. With the navigational equipment, if you're just off by 1 degree, you could end up in a totally different location than you had intended. The same thing goes for love and relationships. I know a lot of people, they think initially, wow, this looks like a great decision to be with this person, only to find years later, what was I thinking? Why did I stay in this relationship? I don't think this was very healthy for me. Again, a small decision made now can have a massive impact later on. So how do loving and committed relationships form? Well, we know besides commitment, trust is one of the key elements for success in couple relationships. You know, and that's something when we think about literacy, not everyone seems to recognize, is that if I really want to succeed and be happy in this relationship, I need to be able to trust my partner. You know, actually the number one, and this is very interesting, some groundbreaking research, it just kind of sent shockwaves through our field because there's 43 different data sets with 86 different researchers. So you have all these different participants in couple relationships, and they found the most important factor for relationship satisfaction was perceived partner commitment. If I really believe that my partner wants to be with me and is going to stay with me, I am far more likely to be happy and satisfied in my relationships. You know, we see lots of things online. You know, we see all sorts of things online about love at first sight. You could be watching a movie, you're like, oh wow, I think that's just the way it's going to take place to me. I'm going to find my soulmate. But we know actually from a lot of research literature, for most people it's a gradual process. This is something that's built up over time. It's a process. I mean, you could start out as friends. In fact, we know some of the healthiest and happiest couples, they seem to be best friends. Like, I can count on this particular person. They're going to be there for me and take care of me. Planning for the future, we know that healthy commitment, healthy relationships requires, well, what's our life going to look like next week, next month, next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You're planning for a future together. Love is viewed as a primary reason for getting and staying married. Now, you might say to yourself, well, why are you talking about marriage? Well, for our emerging adults, 18 to 29-year-olds, and you might not know this, but most of them actually want marriage, which is very fascinating because it's taking lots of steps in their life to get to marriage. But when they poll them in 2024 or 2025 statistics, with thousands of them, they still say it's a lifelong goal. They're not heading there now or they're not heading there tomorrow, but they're kind of meandering towards marriage. But the problem is, a lot of the decisions we make along the way, accumulated over time, can really have an impact on our ability to get to that destination we want to get to. Love involves acceptance for partners for themselves. Sometimes students or clients will say to me, should I just accept this addiction in my relationship or this violence in my relationship? And here's some literacy for you. The answer is no. You should not tolerate things that are going to bring you down and hurt you. At the same time, none of us are perfect. And so we do have shortcomings. We do have ways we have to forgive each other and grow with each other. But there should be some red flags where you just say, you know what, there's some things I can't tolerate. Here's a great example. I've literally had couples fight in therapy about how they squeezed out the toothpaste in the toothpaste tube. And they were not happy with each other. You're just about to spit out your coffee everywhere. And they were not happy about that. Love requires empathy and commitment. You need to be able to empathize with your partner, be committed to them. Commitment is characterized by a willingness to work through problems and conflicts as opposed to calling it quits when problems arise. That is literacy, I'm here to tell you, that unfortunately a lot of emerging adults do not get. I'm tired of this. We're not getting along. We just had a fight. This is over. Well, that's not going to lead to probably good outcomes because we know the healthiest and happiest of couples still have conflict and have to work through things in their relationship. Committed lovers have fun together. They also share tedious times. This means washing dishes together, balancing a budget together, taking care of lawn work, children, etc. You're able to express yourselves freely. You maintain the relationship. Just because problems come up, you don't necessarily say it's over. I really love this quote by my good friend Scott Stanley and Galena Rhodes. Scott Stanley and Galena Rhodes are at the University of Denver. They are world-renowned for their scholarship when it comes to commitment in couple relationships. And they said, at the root, commitment means making a decision to choose one alternative over others, and then choosing one is deciding to give up other alternatives. Deciding is fundamental to commitment. I say this to my students sometimes. You gave up other choices to be with me today in the classroom. I'm just so proud of you for being here. You decided to be here with me. You made a decision. Commitment's all about deciding. And that can be really challenging for all of us when we want to have all the options in our life. But the commitment means letting go. It means letting go of other options. Even just like us being here together this afternoon. We had other obligations potentially we could have been involved in, but we let go. And here we are, and we committed ourselves to this. Perhaps you've seen this meme before. My students get very reactive whenever they see this meme. They get very, very reactive. I think that we do get reactive to this. In fact, grand majority of American adults, about 85% still to this day, say that going outside your relationship is morally wrong. But what we say, we think, and then what we do, it's two different things. It's becoming increasingly easy for any of us to step outside of our relationships. Just with swipes of our fingers, we can connect with lots of people in a very, very short period of time. But again, commitment means making a decision. There's a very, very fascinating study, and I'll let Scott Stanley explain it in the video in just a minute, but there's a very fascinating study that came out in 2016 about asymmetrical commitment. And this really, really resonates for my students, for my clients, and it's this idea that some people in their relationships are more committed than their partner is. Like, you feel like I'm giving 100% to this, I really want to be here, I really want to be in this relationship. Unfortunately, there's too many people that aren't that way, where it is asymmetrical. Some highlights from this study. Number one, the romantic partner who is the least committed in a romantic relationship has the most power. Isn't that fascinating? Now, statistically speaking, men most often seem to be the weak link in their relationships, and if men are the weak link in their relationships, and here's one of the fascinating parts, women are significantly more likely to stay. Now, we've also seen some research with same-sex relationships, etc., but there's something to say about the weak link partner. When the person's weak link, a lot of people decide to stay in relationships they probably otherwise should probably leave and get out of. Interestingly, if women are the weak link in their relationships, then the relationship is more likely to end. To explain more about this is my friend and colleague, Scott Stanley.
One of the phenomena of ambiguity is, I think, it masks it being, it doesn't force people to be clear about how committed I am to you and how committed you are to me, which we think greatly increases the odds now that people are in asymmetrically committed relationships, but don't even necessarily know it. Sometimes people know it, sometimes they don't know it. My favorite conceptual image of this is this picture of a teeter-totter or a seesaw. If you were raised in other parts of the country. Now, I just want to comment. This picture I got on the internet. It's a picture of a teeter-totter from Asia. And I think that's actually important because you could not find a picture of a teeter-totter in America now that looked like this because they've been deemed too dangerous. And if you did find one on a playground, it would like go up 8 inches on each side. There'd be the 8 inches of rubber stuff under it, and you maybe have the kids in helmets. Right? The reason is that, now this picture, this is like the death-defying teeter-totter of my youth. I remember these on our playground. And those of you who've done the teeter-totter thing with any substantial risk, it's actually, it is a very risky device, like relationships. This is a fabulous picture of asymmetrically committed relationships. Because look at the little girl up here on the right. She's looking at her partner. She's completely in. And she's in the up position, right? Now, what do you notice about her legs? They're up. If you were trying to protect yourself from an unreliable partner on the teeter-totter, where are your legs? They're down. Now, I also want to point this out. How well did that really work if they bailed? It helped a little. It didn't help a lot. She is all in. And she's even looking at her partner now. Now, this is, I didn't crop this picture. We just don't have the total picture of the child on the left in blue. But you can see that child's butt is already halfway off the seat. That child's not remotely all in. They're turned. And this little girl's like looking at this person about to bail and not seeing it. You know, why are her legs down? Why, you know, there's no protection here. And so this is one of the consequences of ambiguity, is it allows asymmetry to live for a long time in a relationship without somebody really detecting that that's what they got.
When I talk to my students and talk to my clients, one of the things I notice often is there's a lot of frustration when it comes to dating these days. Lots of frustration. I think one of the reasons for that is that our electronics, our dating apps, have made things very confusing. And here's a quote from a blog post I wrote in 2017. In my clinical work as a marriage and family therapist, I have done therapy with clients who are most certainly in asymmetrically committed relationships. And just like the findings from Stanley et al. 2016, the majority of those who were weak links in their relationships were men. For some of these men, it seemed like they were being dragged to therapy by their partner. My heart goes out to partners that long for a loving relationship but are struggling to find it. How unfortunate it is that some partners choose to exercise their weak link power and lead their partner on, in some cases for months and years, perhaps waiting ever so patiently or impatiently for your partner to commit is not such a good idea. This can be exhausting, has the potential to really take a toll on you personally. And so my students will ask me, well, what do I do? How do I read this? You know, here's the literacy part. How can I detect if my partner's really committed to me and they really want to be with me and for the future? Well, what I'd say is clarify the commitment. If you're questioning whether your partner's really into you and if your relationship has a future, then I invite you to have the courage to clarify the commitment in the relationship. I know defining the relationship can be scary, although I believe this is always the best approach. People communicate signals about commitment frequently. There's the literacy piece. So it's important to be observant and be tuned into your relationship. How much better it is to break up with someone who is a weak link before sliding into an apartment, getting married, and especially having children together. I believe anyone has the potential to be in a healthy relationship, but this generally requires taking a proactive rather than a reactive stance. So let me run through some research with you. This is going to be a lot of research in a very, very short period of time, so buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. One of the things we know about loving, committed relationships is they express love verbally. They're physically affectionate with each other. They express their appreciation towards each other. You know, when's the last time you thanked your partner and you expressed gratitude towards them? You help the relationship or family become an emotional support system. If you've had a really rough day, you want to know this person's got your back, that you can talk to them on just about anything. You express your affection in material ways. Now, I don't have them here with me, but you know something I love to eat is Mike and Ike's. And my wife, she will grab me Mike and Ike's from time to time at the store. This doesn't have to be expensive things, but it sure goes a long way to let me know that she cares. Number 6, accept your family member's shortcomings. Again, there's the toothpaste tube, which I talked about earlier. Again, this doesn't mean accepting everything that can happen. You know, there could be some red flags for you, like you cannot cheat on me, or you cannot be addicted to gambling or to drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. Number 7, do unto each other as you would have the other do unto you. Share more about yourself with your partner than you do with any other person. Make time to be alone together. Do not take your relationship for granted. Like I mentioned before, even the happiest and most committed couples experience conflict. The difference is how those couples address what's really going on. So here's some advice for you. You can apply this right now as you leave today and interact with family members, friends. If you've got feedback to give to people, be gentle. And what I mean by that, we have research, a lot of research that says you're far more likely to stay in a satisfying, healthy relationship if when you bring up things you need to talk about, whether it's finances or sex or whatever it is, say, you know what, I really love you, I care about you. Did you know we need to work on finances together? Can we make a plan together to spend more time with each other? The problem is, too many times people get on the defense after we raise concerns. So communicate care and affection, reduce anxiety. Do you know how to reduce anxiety in yourself? That's something all of us can work on. Accept influence from each other and do what is needed to de-escalate the argument. People slide in having sex. People slide in having children. People slide in dangerous relationships. In contrast to sliding, there are strong conceptual reasons to suggest that clear decisions generally build the most resilient intentions. So very quickly, I just want to show you one last video clip. So this is from, again, Scott Stanley and Scott Stanley's research team at the University of Denver. They had a landmark study, and this has been cited hundreds of times now in many, many studies, is this idea of sliding versus deciding. Sometimes this is called inertia theory. When my students learn about this changes a lot of things for many of them, because what it is sometimes when people are facing a decision, they just kind of let it happen to them. It just kind of happened. We met at the bar, so we just decided to have sex. I actually had a couple that I was working with years ago. They met at the bar, and they moved into it with each other a week later. I was like, oh my gosh, that is really moving. But we know from a lot of research, the very best outcomes for children, for families, for couples is when we talk to each other, and then we make a decision. We're intentional, we're thoughtful in what we're doing.
You know how it is. You're just living your life. Work, friends, stuff. Always running from one thing to the next. And then wham! You run into your soulmate. And your whole world becomes vibrant. Everything changes. You can't concentrate at work. Your friends are put on the back burner. Normal stuff no longer matters. What matters is making your soulmate happy. You start to enjoy the music they listen to, and you become a fan of their favorite sports teams. You realize that you really want to learn how to cook, and you spend every possible second together. Further, you co-sign on a car for them. You jump into a shared cell phone plan. You become the proud parents of Princess. Maybe you talk about moving into an apartment together, and time marches on. Then one day, it's as if you're seeing this person for the very first time. Sure, you're both active, but not in the same way. Yes, you both have hopes for the future, but one wants to settle down, and the other wants to take off on adventures. You're not sure what happened exactly, but you realize that while this person is great, they're not great for you. You'd like to break up, but you're more locked in than you realized. What about that car loan? How much will it cost to break your cell phone contract? Will there be a custody battle over Princess? And just imagine how much harder it would be to break up if both your names are on the lease. Wow, how in the world did this happen? You acted on the belief that you had a timeless love, but in reality, you had a time-limited chemical high. When we first fall for someone, the brain makes and releases an abnormal amount of chemicals in the body that affect how we think and feel. For example, there's dopamine, norepinephrine, and oxytocin. These are some of the chemicals that make us feel happy, energetic, and connected to others. During this period, you're in an altered state of mind. a kind of drug city. So it makes sense to do the kinds of things that join your lives together, little things that lock you in. But the high doesn't last forever. At some point, your chemical levels will become more normal. And the same person you locked in with in your drug state is, in many cases, not the person you see yourself with for the long haul, but you locked in before giving yourself a chance to come to. What is the better way? Take your time to enjoy one another without doing the things that make it hard to break up. Go ahead and fix up the current lemon. Don't sign for a new car. Buy Princess the fish, not Princess the puppy. Keep your own place. Don't sign a lease together. Decide to do the things that bring you closer. Don't slide into the things that lock you in. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Again, take it slow so you don't get a DUI. Decisions under the influence.
That's a part of literacy for relationships that I found very, very helpful for my clients, for my students. I mean, there's lots to be said for that, even when you are married, et cetera, and moving through life. You know, instead of sliding, why don't we decide? It would be intentional. I published a study. It's called We're Just Talking, Constructing a Recent Trend in Emergent Adult Romantic Relationships. Suffice it to say, people are not going on dates anymore. They're doing a lot of this pre-dating behavior on their phones, where they're talking to each other and talking to each other. It's not to say people don't go on dates, they just don't do it the same way that they used to in previous generations. And so that's what this study was all about. We had 9 focus groups with about 52 participants, and what they indicated is their technology is really playing a role in how they relate to others. You know, the world has changed when it comes to romantic relationships, especially forming them, and some people are sliding and some people are deciding. And the invitation I have to you as you're thinking about literacy is what can you do to teach your children, your students, other people that you interact with, how to slow down and not get a DUI, like was being talked about in that video. So here's courses I teach. The reason I have them on the screen is they've all become kind of gen ed courses. So if you have students or people you think would benefit from learning more about relationships, I have a research team. We blog about commitment, we research about commitment, and there's a QR code for that. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's been great to be with you. The question is, there's a lot of bad information out there from TikTok, Instagram, social media. You go on YouTube, boy, you're going to find all sorts of stuff. You even go on to very popular websites. Sometimes I get interviewed for television or radio or print, and sometimes I even have to talk to the reporter. No, that's not exactly what's going on here with the research, because they're really trying to create this particular piece about whatever it is. I think one of the reasons for that is that people are searching for answers, like desperately searching for answers. I think in some ways AI can be a helpful tool actually now to find some of that information, sift through it more quickly, but the problems you have there is so many people have experiences in their own life, and they feel like that they can generalize those experiences to everybody. One of my colleagues at Kansas State University, she has a website called Relevate, and it's literally a collection of research about lots of different topics, and there's even an app, and you can download it, and that's one outlet for information for emerging adults. I think one of the problems that you're seeing is that a lot of people want to share their own personal experiences, but you can't back up just personal experiences. It's like blinders for us in our life, because you just can't generalize that. I mean, each family, each relationship is going to be unique in itself, but there are traits like commitment, like trust, and other things that just needs to be addressed in a different way. Sometimes people think that I have to be in a relationship where I speak the same language, or we go to the same church, or we share a lot in common. It's not to say that some of those things don't help you connect in some ways, but I think we're finding more so now than ever before, people are coming together that, especially online, it kind of puts us together. We meet people that we maybe never would have even thought of before, because our friends aren't referring this to us, the internet, Tinder, or wherever people are going to find a romantic partner. I think the thing I'd say about that is, on our blog, we've published almost 100 blog posts, but some of the most popular posts is when biracial couples Bilingual, I think, would definitely fit into that as well, is where I have a different culture. You don't understand my family of origin, or you don't understand the experiences I'm going through. I've worked with couples like this. Here's an example where one partner's from South America and the other one's from the United States, and yet they've come together, and yet there's cultural things that seem to be a real barrier for connection in the relationship. So there's definitely research out there. I have colleagues that are doing those types of things. I don't do that personally myself, but I would definitely invite them to find some literacy, because it's out there regarding those relationships. Yeah. One of the things that we definitely see in the research literature when it comes to romantic relationships is about attachment. So attachment style that was developed during early childhood, and then perceptions, understanding of commitment in emergent adult relationships. Absolutely, we definitely have those studies. One of the things that can be very, very influential on attachment actually is how your parents behaved in their own relationship. And it's not necessarily directed at you. So I teach child abuse and neglect, like you can see on the screen. And we know that like neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, they can all have an impact on attachment. But guess what also has an impact on attachment? Divorce. Divorce has an impact on attachment, separation of parents, or if your parents fight a lot. So absolutely. So we know that from just the observation of your parents and how close they were to each other. Or maybe you never knew your father, you never knew your mother, or maybe they've passed away, or whatever the situation might be. We know that that could be very, very influential. And so we know that people that are struggling with security in their relationship are more protective and more pessimistic about marriage and commitment in general.
We have a lending library as a center that affiliates are welcome to borrow from, and we actually invested in this library over the last few months, so we have updated equipment, new software, new tools and toys available for affiliates to check out. Our grad students have spent a long time organizing those and getting those ready to check out. So if anybody's interested, email CISLL@NIU and we will hook you up. If you are applying for a grant, there is one fleeting moment in the application process where you will be asked if you are affiliated with any centers on campus. If you are one of our affiliates, please check that box when you apply for funding, because ultimately some of that money, instead of getting routed into a big nameless NIU pot, will get funneled into a smaller CISLL pot, and we can invest it in pop grants and equipment and bringing speakers to campus. So please don't forget and look for that button to click. Husky Commons, all faculty and students doing research at NIU should be uploading their publications into Husky Commons, because that will make them findable in Google searches to people around the world. When you upload to Husky Commons, again, check CISLL or enter Husky Commons through the CISLL window, and your work will be specifically associated with our center, and we are very proud of you and want to be affiliated with you, so please do that. This graphic is showing all of CISLL's research. This was a snapshot at a certain place in time who around the world was downloading research from our affiliates, and at this point 3,500 people had downloaded our stuff from around the world, so please join that elite group. One last thing, CISLL has an eye tracking machine. If you want to do eye tracking research, let us know. We will direct you to our eye tracking equipment and get you trained. Thank you so much.